Hey everyone, this is Jason from Alphatone Audio. Today we have part 4 in our 5-part series of getting pedals mounted to your pedal board. Today we go over the bike chain method, which is interesting. I guess there was a cycling enthusiast out there who was also like to build his own pedal boards or whatnot and came up with this. But it's interesting. It's a very solid method, as you're actually going to use these links to screw your pedals down into your pedal board, which is nice if security is a big priority for you. Not as easy to move them around, and your pedal board could start to look like Swiss cheese after a while. But if security is your main priority and you don't mind going through a little bit of work to get some odd materials and an odd tool, then this could be a good solution for you. So to get started, the two main things you're going to need is you're going to need a bicycle chain. Now you can buy one of these. I didn't. I just walked over to the local bike store and went back to the repair department and asked if they happen to have one in the garbage they could give me, and they did. They seemed to not have a problem with it. You just don't need a new one. The only disadvantage to getting an old one is you may have a few links that are broken or something like that you can't use, but even like a small chain like this is going to be enough for you to mount up like 15 or 20 pedals. So I mean, one bike chain should last you a lifetime. The only thing about it, they come in lots of different sizes according to whether you have like a 10-speed or a 12-speed, which is the width of the chain. You don't really need to worry about any of that. The only thing you do need to worry about is make sure that the links are flat. Some you will get, then they have a bit of an S-curve to them, like BMX chains or like really heavy-duty ones. You don't want that. You definitely want the ones with the flat links. But as long as you have that, then you should be okay with everything else. The other thing that you're going to need is a chain breaker. You may already have one. If you have one of these little multi-tools in your bike bag, this one happens to have a chain breaker already in it. Or you can buy one that's standalone. They're not too terribly expensive. I looked around online this morning and I found a lot of cheap ones between like $10 and $15. This happens to be a nicer one, maybe like 20 or 25. You can pay up to 50. You certainly don't need to if you're just going to do this once. Pretty much anything is going to be able to get you through one chain and get you the links that you need. To use the chain breaker, it's pretty simple. They all have a screw type mechanism, and when you tighten down on it, this pin comes out and it pushes these individual pins that hold the chain together out of the chain. So, and it's generally easier if you start somewhere in the middle, like not the very end. And I'm going to put it over to the left here. So when this starts to spread apart, when that pin comes out, this gives a little bit of side reinforcement so everything just doesn't start to spread out and bend on you. Put it in, tighten it down a little bit, make sure that this pin is aligned with the pin in the chain, and then just start to tighten. And it won't be terribly easy, but you can see over here the pin is starting to come out of the chain, and just keep going until it comes all the way out. And that's what you want to pop out. This unscrew, and then it comes apart. Do this one more time. As I back it out, then we have our first two links, and this is what we're after. Now, even if you did happen to buy a new chain, these are going to be dirty and greasy, because even new chains are packed with quite a bit of oil, and if you get a used one, there's no telling what's going to be on it. So you're going to want to clean them up, which is not too difficult. You don't have to be fragile with these. Any kind of degreaser, when I clean mine up, any of these kind of citrus degreasers, I like a bit. You could use carburetor cleaner if you have it, simple green, whatever. I would just go through, break the whole chain at once, and then I just get a bunch, put them in a container, soap, some hot water, just give them a good shake. Do that 2-3 times. I mean, you could even use some dishwashing detergent if you need, and then rinse them clean and dry them. And just get as many as you need. Okay, quick reset to wash the grime off my hands. So now that we have clean chain, On this one, at least, there's two different kind of links that actually come off. You get one on one side and one on the other. One is very, very flat on both sides, and this one has a bit of a lip around the holes on one side. Now, there's not a huge difference between the two of these. You could use either, but if you really want to get this fitting as well as you can, if you have these ones with the lip on it, these work well. So this is just Boss pedal, and I already taken the rubber off and cleaned up and put dual lock in there. But because I took that rubber off, this bottom plate actually sits inside of the case a little bit, and there's a little bit of a lip. These ones with that raised edge on there work pretty well on pedals like this, because that ledge usually ends up going down far enough into the chassis to make contact with the bottom of the pedal. And basically everything just snugs up a lot better and just feels a lot more solid when you do that. Now, because this is totally flat, I'm not going to use those, and I'm going to use the ones that are flat on both sides, just because I want everything to fit flat and snug, and there is no contour or ledge or anything there. So just going to take the screws out, reuse the existing bolts, and don't snug them up too much just yet. Okay, once you have that, you just want to get your pedal oriented where you want it. Okay, and you also have to make a decision whether you want these to come straight up from the sides of the pedal or to go more of a vertical orientation like this, depending on if your next pedal is close to it, whether you have the jacks on the side, whether you have the jacks on the back, whatever. Just kind of keep your options open. You don't always have to just assume they're going to go one way or the other. So I'm just going to go straight out on this one. Tighten that up a bit. Okay. From here we're just going to mark our holes and drill, and you really don't even have to pre-mark. You can just drill directly if you want, or just, you know, make some marks to the center of the hole. I talked about this quite a bit when we did the last video where we used bolts and we drilled the holes through. You don't need to be as careful with this, just because the bolts don't need to line up through the holes. Just going to drill the hole and the screw goes in, and that's all there is to it. But you can mark them or just drill directly. If you do drill directly, just make sure that when the chuck on the drill comes down, if you go, I don't have a ton of clearance there, if it comes down and hits the edge of your pedal, it will definitely leave a mark on there. That's the only reason I'm going to pre-mark and pre-drill these. The screws I'm going to be using are number 6 truss heads. Number 6 fits inside these links fairly well. If you do get some other weird size bicycle chain, you may need to use a different one, but these work fine for me. And again, truss head, because they have a very wide head on them, so there's plenty of surface area on the bottom of the head of the screw to connect with the top of the chain there. So once everything drilled, it's just a matter of feeding the screws in. And that's it. Pretty simple. Not a lot to it. In order to get that pedal off, you'd have to rip all 4 of those screws out, which would certainly not be easy. Basically, the bottom of the pedal is not making contact with the board. It's the head of those, the back cover bolts now that are making contact. So there's a little bit of clearance into there, which should be fine. Just make sure that everything's nice and snug. It won't move around. Now, one other thing about these, I had this other pedal, which I put one on, and this has small bolts and these rubber feet on here. Now, by the time the bolt goes through the rubber foot, which didn't have any kind of like metal washer or insulating ring in there or anything, and then I get the bike chain, which fit like a little bit crooked because I have a very, very small gap in here, which is not quite as deep as the lip on that hole was. it just feels like a little bit squishy and you don't get a great connection. If you have something like this, just experiment and see what works best. I discovered that this just works best when you just leave the feet off and you don't put it back on. Also, if you have a bolt that has an unusually small head, you may have to find a small washer just to make sure that there's enough contact area between the bottom of the bolt head and the bike chain. And that's it for bike chain. The only other thing I want to add is there's a couple products out there that you can buy, which are basically a pack of small pieces of metal that look like bike chain, but were designed specifically for the purpose of mounting pedals. I have no experience with these, but I will certainly link to them in the description. And with that, that wraps up 4 out of 5. And until next time, take care.